Hello, I'm Logan Ryles, and today I'm going to be answering some frequently asked questions. Get a few questions several times, and I think, there's a lot of people curious about this. Maybe I should talk about it. So I've assembled a few questions here today, and we're just going to breeze through them real quick. And if you have any questions that I don't answer, go ahead and leave me a comment, and I'll let you know, and we may talk about it a little bit more in another video. So let's get started. Question number one, will there be audiobooks? I get this one a lot, and good news, there will be audiobooks. In fact, there already are some audiobooks. As of this recording, we've got, Overwatch and Hunt to Kill are available. And my friend Gary Bennett is hard at work on Brink of War, first book in my new series. And that'll be out later this month. But then we've also got the rest of the Reed Montgomery series coming. And then my friend Kyle Tate is hard at work on Wolfgang's series. So yeah, lots of audiobooks coming. They're gonna be really good. Where did the idea for Reed's character come from? Well, that is, that's a long story. Let me see, how do I give you the summary? I knew I wanted to write an action hero, essentially, and I knew kind of what I wanted him to be like, and I basically went off that model. The name came from my wife and I. We were driving, trying to come up with a strong name. I wanted a name that was strong and distinct, but also sounded like a name. It didn't necessarily sound made up. And I can't remember where Reed came from. I think she came up with that. And then Montgomery, we kind of came up with together, which was fun because I actually grew up outside of Montgomery, Alabama. So a little throwback there. And Reed, in fact, grows up in, he grows up in Birmingham and Los Angeles, but it's from Alabama. Anyway, so that's where the name came from. And then as far as the character, it was just kind of development of what I wanted to write about. His backstory kind of came to me as I was crafting him, and it kind of evolved from there. When I actually sat down to write Overwatch, which is the first Reed Montgomery story I ever wrote, I really didn't know a lot about him, and I kind of explored who he was on the page, and my amazing editor, shouts out to Sarah, she helped me a lot with refining who he was and be like, okay, you're off in the weeds talking about this thing that's not exciting, and you need to focus on these other parts of him that are exciting. So yeah, that's where Reed came from. In what order should I read your books? Another very popular question. So I guess I have maybe 15 books out right now. And so I can understand it gets a little confusing about the timelines, especially because many of the characters in one series will appear in another and vice versa. I've actually got a link on my website. If you go to loganryles.com, there's a link up in the top. I believe it's reading order. Yeah, sounds right. You can click on that and it'll break it down by chronological order of the story, which is not the order I published them in. Wolfgang's series takes place first chronologically, and then Sandbox with Reed, and then the Reed Montgomery series, and then finally the Prosecution Force series. You can read any series you want. You could start with Wolfgang, you could start with the Prosecution Force. They're gonna make perfect sense. But if you really wanna know chronologically where to go, you can check out my website. Having said that, if you're brand new to my work and you've maybe never picked up one of my novels and you wanna know where to start, I recommend starting with Brink of War, the first book in my brand new and ongoing Prosecution Force series. I think, humbly, it's maybe my best work so far, and it's gonna make perfect sense. And then if you decide that you wanna learn more about these characters, you can read their series and get all the background, yeah. Will there be more Wolfgang books? Another popular question. So the Wolfgang series that I was just talking about begins in like circa 2012 and wraps up, I want to say in early like circa 2013. And Wolfgang first appears in Reed's stories in Hunt to Kill, which is the second book in Reed's series, and that's like circa 2018. And there's a big gap, not just in like years, but in like who Wolfgang is as a person. He's known as the Wolf in Reed's series, and he's not necessarily that person at the end of his series. And so there's a lot of questions. Will I close that gap? The answer is yes, I want to close that gap. I originally planned for a 3-book series to kind of tell the story of how Wolfgang transitions from who he is at the end of that time in Sydney to who he is in Reed's series and going forward. I haven't had time. That's the bottom line. I really want to do it, but I've had so many projects with the new Prosecution Force series, my new Mason Sharp series, which is coming shortly, which is going to be fun. It's hard to carve out time in my writing schedule. It's hard to carve out time with my editors and to make that happen. But I've got it on my mind. I've got some ideas what those stories could look like. And I think I'm actually gonna, instead of having a separate series to close that gap, I'm just gonna expand the current series with 3 more books. So yeah, that's coming. I don't have, I can't tell you when. I wish I could, but it is coming. And yeah, not forgotten. Will you write any spin-offs? Well, I kind of already have. The Wolfgang series is a spin-off of the Reed Montgomery series, and both of them are background for the Prosecution Force series. Will I write more? I don't know. We'll see. Never say never. At one point in time, I had an interest in doing a Lucy Byrne series, which she's kind of, she's an assassin who appears first in Reed's series, and then she also appears later on in the Prosecution Force series. But I don't know if there's enough story there to really justify an entire spinoff. And I have so many projects, like I was mentioning already, so I don't know. Do you want to see a spinoff? Let me know. Let me know. If there's a character you want to know more about, or what you think might be a cool spinoff, I might be able to do it, or I might be able to add some of that action into forthcoming books in my existing series. All right, let me know. Oh, this one's painful. The end of Sydney. Why? Yeah, so if you've read Wolfgang's series, you know what this question is about. The end of Sydney and the way it ends. I don't want to really say how it ends because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it. But if you read it, you know what the question is. The short answer is that I wrote Reed Montgomery series first. The person Wolfgang is in the Reed Montgomery series and his life circumstances are very different from where he was trending towards in the Wolfgang series. So obviously some things had to change. And that's really all I can say without spoiling anything. So yeah, that's why. What are your top 3 favorite books? That is an excellent question. And in fact, I think that's such an excellent question. We might just do an entire separate video on that. Can I limit it to thrillers though? Can I say top 3 favorite thrillers? I mean, top 3 favorite books. You're talking about so many different genres I've read. I mean, I've got books I read as a child that I would have to say are really special, that I really enjoyed, that wouldn't, I mean, they're not thrillers. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna do another video. We'll talk about my top 3 favorite, probably favorite thrillers. Yeah, since we're all thriller readers here. All right, last question. Why doesn't Wolfgang kill after midnight? Yeah, so in the Reed Montgomery series, it's a big thing that Wolfgang does not kill after midnight, and there's a big question of why. And he kind of alludes to it, but he never says. The answer, this is gonna sound cheap, this is the truth. The answer to that question is in the last 3 books of his series that I was talking about earlier that I need to write. So I'm gonna cover that, I promise. I'm gonna cover it. But yeah, I can't spoil it. I mean, if I spoiled it and then I wrote it, you'd be upset that I spoiled it, rightfully so. So I can't tell you why he doesn't kill after midnight. But I can tell you there's a good reason. And I can also tell you that the story That Time in Appalachia, which is the background of Wolfgang's entire story, which is maybe one of my favorite things I've ever written. I really, really liked That Time in Appalachia. There is a line of dialogue spoken by Wolfgang's mother in that story that alludes to why Wolfgang will eventually choose not to kill after midnight. But I just got to wrap that up with those last 3 books. I need to write those, don't I? And I need to quit making excuses and write those. All right. Those were your questions. Thanks for asking them. Ask some more questions if you have them. You can email me at logan@loganryles.com. You can put a comment down below here. You can message me on Facebook, whatever works for you. Let me know what questions you have. And like I said, I'll answer those for you. And we may expand them into a video a little bit. But for now, that's everything. Thanks for watching.